So I recently booked in 55 sales calls in 1 week, and it had absolutely nothing to do with tactics because the tactics can excite, but they just don't last. Things change. Because things change, you have one option. The option is to understand things. Instead of hoping for something to work, you are very, very confident, 99% confidence that something is going to work because you understand the principles underpinning the idea and the marketing, because those are two of the most important things that you really need to understand when you have a business is what am I working on and how am I going to get people to hear about what I'm working on and want to pay for that. So how do you book 55 sales calls in a week? It's really simple. It's similar to the problem solving process, but it is principle based learning. It is a cycle to go through life, business, marketing, what ideas you pick, the games you decide to play in business are one of the most, if not it is the most important decision you can make. But it's a principle based process to look at reality, take pride in messing up, take pride in not knowing, and put I want to be right to the side and take pride in admitting when you're wrong. Take pride in truth, take pride in intellectual honesty. Don't hide anything from yourself. Look at what happened, what did I misunderstand, what is the principle here, how do I improve, how do I get better, how do I get a better result. That's all I care about. It's not ego, it's simply about I misunderstood something because I got an outcome that I did not expect. I got an outcome I did not want. I got an outcome that I did not think would happen. How do you fix that? You understand what happened, and then you create a principle so that never has to happen again. And you live your life by said principle, and now your marketing is better, your life is better, or your business is better. And then you'll be able to do things like picking the right games and marketing really well and understanding all the tactics, making your own tactics, and booking in 55 sales calls in a week. One of the biggest things that is in opposition to this principle based process is tactics and thinking that they are siloed when they absolutely are not. People think about marketing like this: there's email outreach, there's Facebook ads, there's DM outreach, there's content. Actually, there's the game you choose to play, how you choose to get that message across of what you do, right? The offer, the copywriting is the fundamental thing. The game you play is under the copywriting, because copywriting is text in the form of video or in the form of text. So that could be like a Facebook ad copy, that could be email outreach script copy, that could be a DM copy, and it could be a flow. Someone responds and then you say this other thing, whatever it is. And it can be your content. Right now, this is copy. Me speaking, that is copy. Copy is communication. And the game that you choose to play is what you're communicating. And the game you choose to play, so much of it comes down to supply and demand. It hurts my soul. I see talented, skilled entrepreneurs playing games that are very difficult. And sometimes that makes sense. Most of the time, in my opinion, that makes no sense. You're very good at what you do. Why are you playing something that gives you a natural ceiling that is very hard to overcome? You're very good at marketing. You are marketing to the hardest people to market to in the worst way that you possibly could. They see 1,000 different ads, emails, pieces of content around the same thing. Why are you doing that? Sometimes there's a reason, but a lot of the time you're making it harder for yourself. And the reason they make it harder for themselves is because they have their identity attached to it, even if they think they don't, right? They don't think I'm an agency owner, but they do think this is the narrative I'm following. I'm an agency owner for now. That is still identity based. You are still being trapped. The second reason is they're part of a community that does this. They know a lot of people that do this similar thing. Now, it could be agency, because it is a difficult business model for sure, or it could be something else. Maybe it's a consultant, right? There's a million different things, or a SaaS. Like, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's a specific market that you're attached to. There's some markets that are very sophisticated or very hard to succeed in. But anyway, there's a community, there's an identity or a narrative. And then I think the third thing is, like, I've gone so far and I've found some form of success. It could be a small amount, it could be a massive amount. So I don't want to turn around. So there's a reason for, there's a name for that. It's some sort of mental model or whatever, cognitive distortion. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, that doesn't matter, because if you spent all that time and you took all your learnings from that business and put it into a different business, then you could have made 10 times more. And of course, had 10 times the impact, because a lot of entrepreneurs want to do that. So take the skills that you have, you're not starting from scratch, and take it into a game that is easier to play, because every market and every business model has natural limits. They have local ceilings, global ceilings. And what I mean by that is you are literally limiting yourself, because you cannot force the market to do what you want to do easily, right? There's obviously some marketing campaigns can kind of do that. You think about Coca-Cola, think about these massive brands, you probably do not have that budget. If you don't have that budget, instead of trying to force the market to be interested in you, it makes a lot of sense to think, where is there a starving market that can pay a lot for my services or whatever it is that you do, where you're going to be valued for your skills, your experience. And it could be a business model as well, right? It's business models, it's markets, and it's also marketing methods. So when I say business models and markets, What I'm really thinking about is idea philosophy, in the sense of what is your philosophy around the games that you choose to play. What I mean by that is it a service? Is it a SaaS? Is it a product? Okay. And then marketing philosophy would be specifically how are we going to show people what we do. So I think that you need to have a philosophy around the idea and how are you going to market it, because these are two of the most important things, because the idea will limit your marketing massively. Some ideas go naturally viral. That's really interesting. You don't have to think about marketing anymore. You just build a really good product, and because you've no competition, it goes viral. That is a huge advantage that you have. It's a massive advantage over all of your competitors because they don't exist. So instead of competing against 10,000, 50,000, 200,000 different competitors, millions, why don't you compete against zero? Your results are going to be outsized because the competition is so much less. Fundamental principles in business. What does that even mean? So playing the right game, supply and demand is one factor you need to look at within that process of which game do I play. But there's a million different other things you can also look at. But this is definitely one of the most fundamental principles absolutely inside of business. The next thing is one acquisition platform. So it's so fun to have 10 different things that are working. But the truth is, even if you had 10 different things that are working, you're probably going to focus on the top 1, 2, or 3 at most that are working the most. Because if you put more time into this, instead of 2 hours a week, if you put in 20 hours a week onto your top businesses or your top ways to market the businesses, you're probably going to get a lot more results, because right now you're probably putting in a small amount of your energy, focus, time, thoughts, strategy, energy into the, like I said, the business or the way that you're marketing it. But if you just took all of that from everything else and just 80-20, 80% of the things that are getting results, put everything into that, you're going to get more results from it. One acquisition machine platform. That's one acquisition machine. The next thing is understanding marketing and the tactics, because tactics are important to know. Marketing fundamentals are important to know. However, you could not understand marketing and not understand, I say this with full confidence, not understand marketing, not understand tactics, not understand acquisition, not understand business, and pick the right game and still have incredible results. There is a reason that beginners start in business and they book 10 calls their first month, or 50, or 100, or make X amount in their first month. It's probably usually because they picked a really good game. And of course, luck is a huge factor in business. And if anyone tells you that luck is not a factor, then they're just not using their brain. They're not experienced enough. Luck is a huge factor in life, in business, in the market you pick. Maybe it's a new service that no one does. I can give you some examples. So we ran a campaign for a client. We booked 100 calls in like 2, 3, 4 days, maybe. How do we do that? The timing was perfect. Timing is a fundamental principle in idea philosophy as well. So when I say timing, what I'm specifically talking about is we were marketing to a really sophisticated niche, really saturated niche, and I not all the time, usually don't recommend going into them. But what we did is, instead of saying, hey, website design, we looked into it and we found something unique. There was a new platform that was released by Shopify, so it had authority and it was new. We had authority, it was new, it was novel, it was different, it was unique, and they thought it was going to work, and they thought it was going to be seamless to transition from where they're at as well. So it was a combination of multiple principles, and what it was Shopify released something called Hydrogen, which was an update to, essentially, this isn't true, but an update to Shopify. Basically, it was meant to improve your conversion rate, make your site much faster, and that's a really important thing for the niche we're going after. 100 calls in like 3-4 days because of that. And we could have had really bad marketing and still booked 20 calls, 30 calls. Maybe we won't get to 100 calls in 4 days like we did. Maybe instead we'll get to, like I said, 10 or 20. But that is a massive win for a lot of businesses in just a couple of days. Extrapolate that out into a month and you got 40, 50 calls a month. Now, if you understand marketing, you're probably going to get a lot more calls, which is great, but you don't need that. It should work naturally. The games that I like to play are the ones where it works naturally. You find product or service market fit quite quickly, and then your marketing just improves on that because people want it, right? And it's not just that they need it, because if people need it or if they want it, but there's so much competition, it's really hard to stand out. And of course, you can look at better marketing, right? And content is like a huge game, right? Content is unique. Content has huge amount of demand and a very small level of supply. So if you're in any market, a sophisticated market, content is something to look at. But my point here is that you should play games, in my opinion, that are very lucrative, of course, but that can also get you outsized results. And if you're really good at playing in difficult markets and difficult business models, you really understand business, all of the different skills it takes to do that, and you take those skills into a market that is so much easier, you're just going to see better results in market A or business model A, because like it's market and business model. Those are the two things that can cap you. Market A, you can get 20 calls. Let's say you run an agency, 20 calls a week. Market B, you change market or you change service, right? Business model, market, service, product, whatever. And instead of 20 calls, you put in the same amount of effort or 1/10, literally 1/10 of the effort, and you can book in 200, 300, 400 calls. I've seen it. I've done it. I've booked 5,000, 6,000, something like that calls. And these are some of the most important principles I've seen time and time again, just hitting me in the face. So how do we get here? How do we get to a place where everyone is thinking about silo tactics, right? No one is really booking in a bunch of calls every single week. And if they are, they unfortunately don't understand why they're doing it or how they're doing it. How do we get here into this place where knowledge and understanding of business is so simple and yet so hard to grasp? The answer, in my opinion, is firstly that there's no go-to online entrepreneurial education platform. When I say that in my head, I don't think of anywhere, right? There's maybe one or two or three that kind of come after 30 seconds, but there's no one that has this in my head. It's a part of the community of entrepreneurs. It's a brand image that comes to everyone's head, number one, as in the first time they think of it. There isn't one, and in some ways this is a good thing because I think the word might be decentralized or something similar to that, but it means that coaches and consultants get a lot of chances to improve the education system as a whole. And I don't mean education system as in school and college. I mean the system of education, that is, how do we go into something and find education? So a global education system. That's a good thing. The bad part of that is that most coaches and consultants, they don't know what works. Like the thing that they're teaching will work for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and they never talk about like principles or fundamentals. Like I've been there, I've heard it, I've heard horror stories from the gurus that everyone that is in this space knows, and so many of them are just full of BS, and they teach things as they're figuring it out, which is fine, but you need disclaimers there of like, hey, I'm figuring this out too. This isn't like a finalized product. I'm not saying this is the principle to follow for the rest of your life. It's important to say that, but if you're coming across like, hey, this is an expert frame and I'm not a person that is like infallible or can make mistakes, then you're also selling a product, which is like, here's how to do this. It's like, okay, well, let's actually look at the product. The course, the mastermind is actually utter rubbish. There's nothing here that is lasting. This will work for 3 weeks because it is based on tactics, or 3 months, or right, not more than a year. Tactics change. The thing that works changes, right? So you need to change and pivot business model, how you're marketing, or idea, philosophy, what you're actually working on. And the reason that this happens is because gurus do not know why they're successful. And when I say gurus, I mean people posting online who are a part of this. I know what I'm talking about, pay 10K for my coaching type thing. Like, they don't know why they're successful, and they don't analyze it enough, which they owe it to their students or their customers and clients to actually understand why they're successful, so they can reiterate to their audience that is actually literally paying them for that. But again, they're teaching things as they're figuring it out. They don't know why they're successful. And that's how we get to this place where like literally no one is talking about supply and demand, which I think is just hilarious, because as the most fundamental like business principle that makes everyone the money, why are we talking about instead the best email script? Doesn't matter. Why are we talking about the Facebook ad that, you know what I mean? Like it literally doesn't matter. DM outreach or content. Let's talk about how did that actually happen? What is the underlying principle that will last instead of for 3 months or 6 months or maybe a year? Sometimes it's longer, but what's the fundamental thing here that will work for the next 5 to 10 years? It's understanding humans. It's understanding marketing. It's understanding the game that you're playing. Do you want to play a game where you have to do crazy offers to win? Sometimes it makes sense. Most of the time it doesn't. Or do you want to play a game where you have less competition, so your marketing is more effective because the niche you're going after hasn't seen enough marketing to become numb to it? So now your marketing actually stands out. Instead of scrolling past your ad, your piece of content, your outreach, whatever it is, they look at it because they actually want it and they're excited about wanting it. While there's other markets that, yes, they want your service, or maybe, okay, so they want your service, but they're sick of wanting it because they've tried a million things before, or because they've low trust and they're very suspicious markets. These exist, of course. And then there's another market where they don't want it. They want nothing to do with it, but they need it. So think about like e-commerce, Facebook ads. A lot of those people, if they didn't have to do Facebook ads, they would press that button every day to make that happen. They do not want to do Facebook ads. Not all of them, but a lot of them don't want to do it because they resent it. And why do they resent it? Because they need Facebook ads to grow. At least that's what they believe, which, look, in a lot of ways is true, but there's different things I would do if I was running that business. So they need Facebook ads to grow. And secondly, it's inconsistent for them and it's hard to crack, and they're hiring agencies and they can't make it work. So there's lots of different markets, right? Needs, wants, high demand, crazy offers, guarantees. How do you stand out? You need to have a philosophy and an understanding of how all these different markets work. That's context, that's experience, but also like principles of interesting. It seems like we're now talking about market sophistication. It seems like we're now talking about supply and demand. It seems like these things are boring principles to most people. They're not as sexy as how I made 7 figures with one email script, which I have made a video on because that's what gets people in the door. But I try to bring it back to principles constantly, right? Sell them what they want, give them what they need. But these are principles that actually get you the results. How do you fix this? How do you actually go from tactics, maybe a beginner or intermediate or even experienced, and you're not thinking in this sort of principle-based thinking framework or whatever you want to call it? How do you fix this? Firstly, break the parasocial effect. Nobody has it figured out, right? And the social proof and the case studies that you might see from, agency owners, consultants, coaches, gurus, even the biggest gurus in a space with 10 million followers, 5 million followers, most of the time there's a backstory there that is not being told. So you can't trust even this. You should not trust this. You shouldn't trust any social proof that you see. Okay, 55 sales calls in 1 week. But like, first of all, you don't know if it's real. I mean, it is. I blurred it out. There's real names. Do you know what I mean? But secondly, you don't know show up rate. I'll be very transparent here. 50%, which is normal for a lot of industries, right? So really only 25 showed up, but still 55 calls in 1 week. We'll remarket to them, SMS, right? We'll improve the show up rate as much as we can. We'll try to get to 60 to 70%. But again, this kind of just shows you of, okay, we did book in 55 sales calls in 1 week, and a lot of them are highly qualified as well, but show up rate is 50%. So you have to break the parasocial effect of, I want to believe that this person knows what they're talking about. Let's break that. They're human. They brush their teeth like me. They sometimes get up late. They sometimes get up early. They're sometimes really motivated. They're sometimes not. And it sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but maybe he's just talking absolute bullshit. Maybe I have a script here that I'm reading and I don't know what I'm talking about, and I paid someone that understands all of this to say it to me. Basically, long tangent, break the parasocial effect where you feel like you know somebody, and also just in general, not just that, but you feel like you know them and you're giving them authority and you're giving them frame. Let's break the frame. No one knows what they're talking about, even when they know what they're talking about, because maybe 99% of what I'm saying is right, but 1% is wrong, and I'll realize that in 10 years. So just stop trusting, right? So lead with an okay, but. So it's similar. It's like, okay, you booked in 55 sales calls, but, or okay, the guru posted 20 different things as social proof, but. Like, it seems like things are working, and it seems like it's exciting to talk about email outreach or to pay that guru or this guru, or to look at Facebook ads or to look at content. But truly, if you're doing any of this without understanding principles, you're simply guessing, and you're guessing off anecdotal data, which is basically just, okay, I saw some social proof this week, so I guess I'm going to go pay this person X amount of money. But I think what makes more sense is, like, let's look at fundamental principles. Let's try to understand, is this new, is it novel, what makes this actually work? And then you can make a better, more informed decision of, like, how long is this going to last? Is this going to be a marketing method or a course or a mastermind or a program that lasts for a year or 2 years, as in the results from it, right? So I'm kind of ranting, but these are kind of okay, but fundamentals. How do we look at the fundamentals of this? Let's really understand it, have an in-depth conversation, and sort of like decision making process, decision making conversation with yourself about it. And lastly, like I've already discussed, the principle-based learning cycle. How do we learn from reality to see reality as clearly as we can? And then what we learned from reality, we put it back into the input, right? And the output is reality and your outcomes and your goals. And the input is what you do, what you think, how you see the world, how clearly you see reality, the actions you take in it. The principles can be the difference between I do X and I get Y. How about you do A and you get B? Or you do, you know what I mean? Like, you get a better result. B would be your goal, achieving, materializing, manifesting. A would be your actions. X would be you're doing the wrong thing, but you're trying to get Y. Y isn't even really what you want, and you're still not going to get it anyway. So principle-based learning cycle. It's been one big long rant, but the last thing I want to talk about is hard work, right? So why do people work hard? Part of it is, of course, passion and purpose. They enjoy what they do. You can hear my passion in my voice, I believe. They have a purpose, they have a vision, they have a goal. This is just who they are. Genetics is part of it, childhood is a part of it. So that's part of it, right? Who they are, passion, purpose, genetics, childhood. Also, like, it's important to have nuanced opinions as well. So this is kind of in relation to people who are like, hey, just like shut up and work. Yeah, okay, sometimes maybe that can be helpful to say to yourself. Obviously, don't be a dickhead, but shut up and work can be an effective mindset to have sometimes, and it works for some people, right? We're all very different. That can be amazing for someone for their whole life, and they never take it personally, and it's not negative self-talk. It's simply just the truth. That's how they think. If you curse, it equals the truth, and if you're a bit mean, it equals the truth. To them, they take it well, and they perceive it well, and they see it in the right way. And again, it produces the outcome that they want, and it doesn't give them any negative emotions or slow them down or lead to burnout. In that case, great. Go ahead, like, do it. It's your life. But for a lot of people, again, this is just completely random, but a lot of people who are talking about, like, hey, work hard, and I believe in it too. but I've seen this in myself. It's you don't have an off switch. It's not a good thing, right? There's a big negative, and I'm not saying this to try to be cool. None of that shit, right? There's a negative here of an off switch of, okay, you're not working for 3, 4, 5 hours a day, 6, 7, however many hours you don't work for. You can't turn off. Like, you can't do the things you enjoy because you can't stop thinking. If you're not working, you're thinking about work, and it's not light thinking. It's deep thinking. It is, I have a whiteboard, I have a note, I'm writing, I'm thinking, my mind is going a million different miles an hour. It's like a form of mania. I can't stop thinking about, what did I mess up? What can I do right? What's the future like? Let's think about this decision. Let's really try to understand it. So it's not that they have something you don't. Hormozi says, don't watch, but seems like he knows what he's talking about in some things for sure. His results speak for himself. So you can work backwards from that and understand there must be something he's doing right. Generally speaking, it's not something that they have that you don't. It's something that they lack. It is an off button. Why do they lack an off button? Because of nervous system regulation, and specifically because of trauma. Something happened, and it can be a small thing on the surface, right? It can be a small thing. It doesn't have to be this big life-altering event, right? It really doesn't. It can be a small thing that happened, a thought one day that's stuck. And what this leads to is someone that feels insecure, feels unsafe, feels like they have to compensate for something. There's something in them that says, I have to do this. It's not a need. It's not a want, it's not a desire, it's a I have to, I need to do this. And therefore, that's why there's some people who, they don't understand why they work so hard and why they enjoy it and why they can't just stop. And they're like, hey, all these people who don't work hard, they're idiots. Like, they just are lazy, they have no ambition. The interesting thing though is, if I went into your brain and I healed that trauma that makes you think, hey, I need to show off, right? Some people have that, and I'm not judging. They feel like they need to show off because they were deeply insecure in school or growing up, or like, I don't understand it fully, so I can't speak on it. Nothing wrong with that. Like, go heal it, of course, but they feel they need to show off. So if I healed that, your ambition's gone. You're working 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, or 6 hours a day, but you're not doing the right things. So basically, there's these people who say, hey, go work hard, and I'm going to judge you for not working hard. I'm going to post about it on social media, and I'm going to talk about it. But the truth is, they don't even understand why they work hard. And it's not because, sometimes, a lot of the time, it's not because your personality. And if it is, it's motivated and maximized and exaggerated. But by this next thing I'm about to say, but again, most of the time, it's not because a lot of the time, it's not because your personality, it's just because of trauma. And if you heal that, everything you're saying is bullshit, because it's not about work hard, it's not about lazy, it's about you don't have an off switch, and you're obsessive, and you're manic. I don't understand what that means, so I'm not going to say it. But your brain is mania, right? Like, you can't. Again, I should have said that because I don't understand what that means either. But what I'm trying to say, and my interpretation of the word mania, is like, there's a million ideas going on at once. You can't stop, and it's sort of like you can't focus, but you're also hyper focused, and you're trying to do a million things at once, and you're trying to really understand things, and you're trying to really strategize. But anyway, I'll leave it here. Here's a couple ideas. I'm going to summarize just for myself, really. So how do you get 55 sales calls in 1 week? You stop thinking about how to get sales calls, and you start thinking, how do I get people interested? With fundamental principles, you try to make it simple, one acquisition machine. Try to play the right game. Supply demand is the number one principle within that. And there's a bunch more. I've got like 40 different traits of a good idea, aka the good market, the good niche, that I have written down. They have these lists of like 10 things. How much can the market pay? How much pain are they in? I've got like 40 different things, and they're all important. So play the right game, fundamental principles. You need to understand marketing and tactics, of course, but don't hyper focus on it, because these are never the things, that was weird, didn't mean to do that. These are never the things that are going to long-term get you the results. How do we get here? Just an understanding of how do we mess up, essentially, and teach a generation of entrepreneurs the wrong things. And how do we fix it? Again, I did not mean to do that. But how do you fix it? Basically break the parasocial effect and kind of learn for yourself, principle-based learning cycle. That's what this is about over here. Supply and demand, I'm never going to stop talking about that, because that is an accumulation of many years of learnings and failures and successes, things winning and working, is because of supply and demand. That is the number one principle I've taken from it all. And then lastly, just hard work, and how if you're preaching hard work, you have to have a nuanced opinion about it, because a lot of hard work is actually not because you have something special, not because you're putting in more effort, not because you care more than other people that are looking at you and want to work as hard as you. It's because you don't have an off switch because of trauma. So you need to understand that, and understand your success, and understand yourself. And I'm going to leave it here. Hope this was useful for somebody.